Hello you beautiful souls! Today it's getting colorful because we are trying out some gouache paints. This video is not sponsored, I just want to show you some of my own art supplies and one of my favorite go-to brands. I'm using Horadam Gouache by Schmincke. I heard only good things about those, so I decided I really needed to try them myself. They come in a really pretty metal box, which is also very handy for mixing the colors. You can clearly see that I already used this palette. Some of the paints are upside down because I had some paint blobs drying in the lid and I didn't want them to touch the tubes. The set contains 10 tubes of paint, starting with titanium white, lemon yellow, cadmium red, Madder Lake Deep, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, ultramarine, helio green in a bluish tint, titanium gold, ochre, burnt sienna and ivory black. But instead of getting lost in the names, let's swatch them and see how they look like on paper. This is my little sketchbook that I actually bound myself because I wanted one with watercolor paper and that was kind of hard to get somewhere in the stores. So that's why it actually has two different textures on the left and on the right page. I'm not swatching the white one because we'll see it much better in the painting later on with a different background. You can see it layers on pretty thick and as typical for gouache, it's pretty opaque. If I water it down, it loses some of that opacity, but the colors are still super vibrant. If you are unfamiliar with gouache, it's a little bit like a mix of watercolors and acrylics. It is designed to be opaque, but you can also use it in a much more watered down version, so that it looks a little bit more like watercolors. The opacity is so strong that if I had a black background, I could paint over it with a lighter color without the lighter color being impacted by said background. But while acrylics, once they are dry, cannot be removed anymore, I can activate the gouache by just adding some water. That's especially handy if you put some paint on your palette and didn't use it all the way. Just let it dry and reuse it at a later time. This attribute, being able to reactivate the gouache, can pose as quite a challenge while painting, but it can also be very beneficial. You just have to learn how to work with it. I really like the color palette of the set. It's very well chosen and you can mix a lot of colors yourself. Before I got the set, I was using a set of much cheaper paints, which also worked very well. It was one of those jelly gouache sets with 18 paints that cost around 20 or 30 bucks. And it served me well for finding out if I actually do enjoy painting with gouache or if I don't. However, when it comes to mixing the paints, it did not go all the way I wanted them to go. So eventually I decided to treat myself to this set. The Horadam colors can also be bought individually, so there is no need to buy the whole set. So this is how the paint swatches look like. I really love how rich and vibrant the pigments are. I wholeheartedly love this set, but if you are a beginner, don't get hung up on the idea that you need all those paints or that you need those paints at all, especially from the Horadam line. Schmincke definitely is my go-to brand and I do recommend them, but they also have paints in varying quality grades. The Horadam paints are the top tier paints, also referred to as artist grade. The cheaper version is called student grade, or in German it's called academy grade. Student grade paints are much more affordable and perfect to start with. I actually saw that Schmincke has a 5-piece set of academy grade gouache paints with cyan yellow, magenta, white and black. Those are the primary colors as well as the contrast, meaning you can basically mix any other color with them. So if you're on a budget or just don't want to spend so much, this would be a great option, I think. I'm actually thinking about getting them myself because I'm really curious about them and how I would do with them. I did learn my lesson from the last time using a water-based painting technique, and this time I taped down my paper and prepped it by soaking it. Once it's dry again, it's not perfectly flat anymore, but during the process it turned out absolutely fine, and it did not get wavy anymore. So if you're working with a water-based medium, you should definitely do that. Under one of my videos, I got the suggestion to start off with a dark underpainting, and believe me, I tried. And then I ruined the whole thing, and this is actually the second version of this sketch. So I decided to treat it more like a watercolor approach and build up the painting bit by bit, starting with the skin tones. I also feel like there's something oddly satisfying about adding to the shadows rather than adding to the highlights. So that's how we're doing it. I kind of felt like giving her a bit of a mermaid or ocean color vibe, so that's why I chose the green for the underpainting of the hair. But as I kept working, I felt like it did not really match. I tried fixing it, but I really did not enjoy it. So I decided to change it and just paint it over it. This was super easy due to the high opacity of the gouache paints. The green really doesn't show through the top layer of paint. If you see some bits, that is because I did not cover them all the way or properly. Looking at it now, I do have to say, I feel much better with those colors. I felt like this would be a great chance to add some colored pencils for some extra detail and some extra texture. I don't work much with colored pencils, but I feel they are a great addition to gouache and watercolor. I think this already looks pretty alright, but it's still lacking a little bit of definition. While I could keep going with exclusively the paints, I'm a really big fan of black line art, in case you didn't know that already. So let's add a little bit of that and make it look a little bit more comic-like. Especially on the eyes, it adds quite a bit of an effect. After seeing the line art all done, I feel like some more highlights could do very well for the painting. Also, instead of just adding white highlights, I decided that I'm going to add a little splash of color, painting some of the highlights slightly pinkish. I chose pink because that's going to be the color of our background. And having the background interact with the main object of our painting, it will engage it a little more and it will tie everything together. If you remember the swatches from the beginning of the video, you can see how far only a few colors can get you and how much you can really mix them. The only colors I used without mixing are the ultramarine blue and the dark reddish shade. Everything else I mixed myself. And really, that's not the limit of this palette. You can do unlimited amounts of colors really. It really depends on what you're painting. For the final details, I would have loved some magenta to really give it a flashy neon look, but all in all, I think this palette did great. Last but not least, let's remove the tape. If you want it to come off clean without ripping the paper, it helps to heat it with a hairdryer, which I also just recently learned myself, so happy to pass that knowledge on to you guys. But look at those clean edges. If that doesn't work, I don't know. So this is our final results working with the gouache paints. I think they're a lot of fun. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm really looking forward to practicing with them more. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you are inspired yourself to get your watercolors or gouache paints out now. If you would like to see more art tutorials or just some more of my art experiments, click that subscribe button and I will see you again next week. Thank you for watching and I hope you have a great day. Bye!